Commander Sarix pressed her elongated fingers against the observation deck's viewport, her silver-blue skin catching the soft glow of distant stars. Her vertical pupils dilated as she watched the human vessel dock with Cordwell Station. Such fragile creatures. The airlock cycled with a soft hiss. Atmospheric equalizers hummed their familiar tune. Then he stepped through Lieutenant Benton Hayes' Terran Diplomatic Corps, 2 meters tall, perhaps less. Soft pink flesh that bruised at the slightest touch. No natural armor, no retractable claws, no toxin glands. Just vulnerable biology wrapped in a simple blue uniform. "You're the human liaison." Sarix's voice carried the melodic trill of her people, the Zephyrans. Her species had conquered 7 star systems through sheer physical superiority. Each warrior stood 3 meters in their prime, with reinforced cartilage that could deflect plasma bolts. "Yes, ma'am. Benton Hayes at your service." His voice was warm, steady, unremarkable. Sarix noted how his eyes, those strange circular pupils, seemed to take in everything at once. The weapon mountings, the emergency exits, the position of her honor guard, curious behavior for a diplomatic mission. The Terran Council requested this meeting to discuss the Korthak situation. Benton continued, his hands relaxed at his sides. "I understand your people have concerns about human involvement." Concerns was a diplomatic understatement. The Korthak had been the Zephyrans' ancient enemies, a warrior race even more brutal than her own people. For 3 centuries, they had battled across the outer rim, locked in bloody stalemate. Then humanity had entered the galactic stage, requesting only a small colony world in the contested zone. The Zephyrans had barely noticed. Humans were classified as level 3 on the threat assessment scale. Curious, inventive, but ultimately irrelevant. Their ships were small, their weapons conventional, their diplomacy overly concerned with casualties and collateral damage. They spoke of peace while living in a universe built for war. "Your species requested Kepler-400 and 42 billion, Sarix said, her tail swishing with restrained irritation. "A world in the direct path of our next offensive against the Korthak territories." "Yes, ma'am. A world that will become a battlefield within the cycle." Benton nodded slowly. He moved to the viewport, standing close enough that Sarix could smell his scent, an odd mixture of metal and something organic she couldn't identify. "We're aware of the tactical situation." The human touched the transparasteel with his bare hand. "That's why we're here. You cannot possibly defend that world." Sarix's crest fluttered with what might have been amusement. "The Korthak deploy battle fleets that would reduce your colony ships to vapor before they could establish orbit. We've considered that possibility." His calmness was unsettling. No species facing extinction spoke with such measured tones. "The Korthak possess dreadnought-class vessels," she continued. "Shields that can withstand sustained bombardment from our most powerful weapons. Ground forces that have never retreated from battle. They do sound formidable. Formidable." Sarix's secondary arms emerged from her shoulder sheaths, an unconscious display of agitation. "They have conquered 12 systems. Their warriors hunt our scouts for sport. They take no prisoners and show no mercy. Yet you still want that particular world." Benton turned from the viewport. His gaze met hers directly, another peculiar human behavior. Most species found Zephyran eyes intimidating. "We do." "Why?" He was quiet for a long moment. Outside, the stars turned in their ancient dance, indifferent to the politics of lesser beings. "Because we can help you win." Sarix felt her throat sacs vibrate with barely suppressed laughter. Help. The Terran Defense Force consisted of 60 ships, patrol vessels and transports, mostly. The Korthak could field 2,000 battle cruisers. Your species has been in space for less than a century. Our conflict with the Korthak has raged since before your civilization discovered agriculture. "Yes, ma'am." Benton clasped his hands behind his back. "We're quite new to this." The condescension was gentle, almost parental. "Then surely you understand that your involvement would be inadvisable, perhaps, but the Korthak are massing for their final push. Your intelligence reports suggest they'll attack the Cordwell sector within 6 months. If they succeed, your people will be forced to evacuate 3 systems." Sarex's crest flattened against her skull. That information was classified at the highest levels. "How do you know about the evacuation protocols?" "We pay attention." Simple words that somehow carried weight far beyond their meaning. The meeting continued for another hour. Benton spoke of agricultural yields and mineral rights, of trade agreements and cultural exchanges, all the tedious mechanics of lesser diplomacy. But Sarex found herself watching his hands, his posture, the way his pupils dilated when she mentioned specific Korthak battle formations. He was memorizing everything. When the formal session ended, she escorted him to the station's observation lounge. The space was designed for visiting dignitaries: soft lighting, comfortable seating, a spectacular view of the Malthorn Nebula. Benton moved to the bar and poured himself something clear from an unmarked bottle. The liquid hissed softly as it contacted the air. "Zephyran ice wine," Sarex noted. "Most species find it caustic." He took a small sip. His expression didn't change, though she noticed his skin flush slightly pink. "It's interesting." He set the glass down carefully. "Your people have exquisite taste. You're trying to impress me. Am I succeeding?" Despite herself, Sarex felt the beginnings of, not attraction exactly, curiosity. This human was unlike the others she'd encountered. Most were nervous around her, intimidated by her size and obvious physical advantages. Benton seemed genuinely relaxed. "Tell me about your world," she said, settling into a chair that adjusted automatically to her frame. "Your homeworld, Earth." His eyes grew distant. "It's beautiful, dangerous, but beautiful. We evolved on a planet that was actively trying to kill us. Predators everywhere. Whether that could freeze you solid or boil you alive. Diseases, natural disasters, poisonous plants." He laughed softly. "And yet you survived. We're remarkably good at not dying." The conversation drifted through topics both personal and professional. Sarex found herself speaking of her own homeworld, the crystal cities of Zephyr Prime, the great migrations across the polar ice, the ritual combats that determined social hierarchy. Benton listened without judgment, asking questions that revealed an understanding of military tactics that seemed inconsistent with his diplomatic role. "You weren't always a liaison, were you?" "No, ma'am. I served with the Colonial Marines before this assignment." "Which unit?" "The 15th Expeditionary. We handled special situations." His tone suggested those situations had been unpleasant. As they talked, the stars wheeled slowly past the viewport. Cordwell Station was positioned at a Lagrange point between 2 gas giants, offering an unobstructed view of the surrounding space. Peaceful, serene, perfect for what was coming. The attack began 3 days later. Sarex was reviewing patrol reports when the proximity alarms started screaming. Her command staff rushed to their stations as the main display showed what they'd all been dreading. 47 Korthak battle cruisers had emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the system. The element of surprise was complete. Zephyran reinforcements were hours away. Cordwell Station had been chosen as a diplomatic meeting point precisely because it was isolated, defensible only by a small garrison force. "Commander," the sensor officer reported, his voice tight with fear. "They're deploying boarding pods. Estimate 30 minutes until the first wave reaches our hull." Sarex felt her blood chill. The Korthak didn't take prisoners. They would kill everyone on the station, then use it as a forward base for their assault on the inner systems. "All hands, battle stations. Activate the emergency beacon and contact on the perimeter Another officer called out. Single vessel approaching from the Terran vector. On screen, the display shifted to show a ship unlike anything in the Zephyran database. Sleek, organic-looking, with hull plating that seemed to shift and flow like living tissue. It was smaller than a Korthak cruiser, but moved with predatory grace through the void. Incoming transmission. It's the human vessel. Put it through. The screen flickered, revealing Benton Hayes in what appeared to be a ship's command center. His blue diplomatic uniform had been replaced by something black and form-fitting. His manner was different too, focused, intense. Commander Sarix, we're reading multiple hostile contacts in your vicinity. Do you require assistance? The question was so absurd that Sarix actually laughed. A single human ship against 47 Korthak battle cruisers. Lieutenant Hayes, I appreciate the offer, but you should evacuate immediately. This isn't your fight. With respect, ma'am, that's where you're wrong. The transmission ended. On the tactical display, the human ship accelerated toward the Korthak formation. Its approach vector was suicide, a direct line toward the largest enemy vessel. What is he doing? Sarix whispered. The Korthak apparently wondered the same thing. Their formation began to adjust, bringing weapons to bear on the approaching human ship. Then, everything changed. The human vessel seemed to come apart at the seams. What had appeared to be hull plating separated into thousands of individual components, each no larger than Sarix's fist. The swarm of objects spread out in a perfect sphere around the Korthak fleet. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the first battle cruiser simply stopped. Its running lights flickered and died. Its engines went silent. Then the second ship. Then the third. In less than a minute, the entire Korthak fleet hung motionless in space, dark and powerless. Sarix stared at the display in stunned silence. 47 warships, each capable of glassing a planet, had been neutralized without a single shot being fired. Her communications officer's voice was barely a whisper. Commander, we're receiving a message from the Korthak flagship. On screen. The Korthak battle commander appeared on the display. His face was a mass of ceremonial scars and ritual piercings, marking him as one of their most decorated warriors. But his eyes held something Sarix had never seen before in a Korthak. Terror. Zephyran vessel, his voice was strained, desperate. We surrender. Our ships have been compromised. We cannot fight. We yield to the human forces. The transmission ended before Sarix could respond. Moments later, Benton's face appeared on the screen again. His expression was calm, almost apologetic. Commander, I'm sorry you had to see that. We tried to resolve this situation through diplomatic channels. What? What did you do to their ships? Nanoscale maintenance drones. They're programmed to identify and disable specific technological systems, weapons, engines, life support. The Korthak crews are unharmed, but their vessels are effectively inert. Sarix felt something cold settle in her stomach. The implications were staggering. Those drones can reproduce themselves using raw materials from the target ships. Yes, ma'am. Each one carries a complete manufacturing template. They can also be programmed to target biological systems if necessary. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. You could have destroyed them entirely. We could have done a lot of things. But the Korthak have families just like we do. They're warriors, not monsters. They'll understand that continuing this conflict is inadvisable. Benton leaned forward slightly. The terms are simple. Complete withdrawal from the contested zone. Prisoner exchanges. Reparations for damaged civilian installations. In return, we'll repair their ships and provide safe passage back to their territory. And if they refuse, Benton was quiet for a long moment. They won't refuse. Over the next several hours, Sarix watched the most powerful warrior race in the galaxy capitulate to a species they had barely acknowledged. The Korthak accepted every human demand without negotiation. They had seen what those tiny drones could do. They understood the message. Humanity wasn't interested in conquest or glory. They simply wanted to be left alone. But if pressed, they possessed weapons that could turn the strongest fleet into helpless scrap metal. The evacuation of Korthak forces took 6 days. True to his word, Benton ordered the repair of their vessels once the withdrawal was complete. The drones swarmed over the enemy ships like healing insects, restoring power systems and repairing damaged components. It was an act of mercy that somehow made humanity seem even more terrifying. On the final day, Sarek stood once again in the observation lounge. Benton joined her at the viewport, carrying 2 glasses of Zephyran ice wine. "You let them go," she said without preamble. "They're soldiers following orders. The war was never really their choice." She accepted the glass, noting how his hand lingered against hers as he passed it over. Human skin was surprisingly warm, remarkably soft. "Your people, you're not what we thought you were." "No." He sipped his wine thoughtfully. "We're much worse." The honesty was brutal and somehow endearing. "Those drones. How long have you had that technology?" "Since before we left our home system. We developed it for asteroid mining initially. The military applications became obvious fairly quickly. And you never mentioned this capability during diplomatic negotiations. Would you have?" Sarek considered the question. In his place, she would have used such weapons as a threat, a deterrent to prevent conflict before it began. "My people would have made demands, territorial concessions, tribute payments. I know, but humans, we just wanted to be farmers." She laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Farmers with weapons that could dismantle a battle fleet in minutes. The universe is a dangerous place. Our ancestors learned to prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the last Korthak vessels disappear into hyperspace. The Malthorn Nebula painted everything in shades of amber and gold. "What happens now?" Sarek asked. "Now we plant crops on Kepler-400 and 42 billion. Build schools, hospitals, maybe a few breweries. Live quiet lives and try not to bother anyone. And if someone bothers you..." Benton finished his wine and set the glass aside. His reflection in the viewport showed a man who looked entirely ordinary, unremarkable in every way. "Then they'll learn why the rest of the galaxy leaves us alone." The words were spoken softly, without threat or bluster. They carried the weight of absolute certainty. Sarek found herself moving closer to him, drawn by something she couldn't name. In her culture, physical proximity indicated either challenge or courtship. With humans, she was learning, it might mean something else entirely. "Will I see you again? We're establishing a permanent embassy on Cordwell Station. Diplomatic relationships require ongoing maintenance." His smile was gentle, warm, entirely human. "I'd like that," she admitted. "As would I." They kissed then, an alien gesture that somehow felt natural. Her lips were cooler than his, textured differently, but the contact sent warmth spiraling through her chest. When they separated, Sarek rested her forehead against his. The difference in their heights required her to lean down, but she found she didn't mind. "Your species terrifies me," she whispered. "Good. That means you're paying attention." Outside the viewport, the stars continued their eternal dance, indifferent to the small moment of connection between 2 beings from different worlds. But perhaps that was enough. Perhaps, in a universe of predators and prey, the most dangerous thing of all was finding someone who made you feel safe. Even if that safety came from knowing they could unmake your enemies with nothing more than microscopic machines and ruthless efficiency. Humanity had introduced themselves to the galaxy as farmers and diplomats, peaceful settlers looking for a quiet place to call home. They had been catalogued as harmless, unremarkable, worthy of casual dismissal. That assessment would need updating. In the days that followed, word of the Korthak surrender spread throughout known space. The details were classified, but the implications were clear. Humanity possessed capabilities that rendered conventional military power obsolete. Trade relationships began to shift. Territorial disputes involving human colonies were quietly resolved in humanity's favor. Diplomatic communications became more deferential, more careful. The farmers from Earth had revealed themselves to be something far more complex and dangerous. They remained polite, friendly, eager to establish mutually beneficial relationships with their galactic neighbors. But now everyone understood the subtext behind their courtesy. Sarex spent the following weeks reviewing intelligence files on human military capabilities. What she found painted a picture of a species that had been deliberately underestimating themselves. Their patrol vessels were equipped with manufacturing bays for producing nanoscale weapons. Their agricultural colonies were positioned to control strategic hyperspace routes. Their diplomats possessed detailed knowledge of alien military systems and tactical doctrine. They had been preparing for galactic conflict since their first day in space, while presenting themselves as naive newcomers seeking peaceful coexistence. It was, she realized, the perfect strategy for a species that preferred not to fight. No one would attack what they perceived as harmless farmers. But should someone make that mistake, they would discover that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their weapons. It was their ability to make others underestimate them. The gentle predators had found their place in the galaxy's food chain, and they were sitting at the very top. 3 months later, Sarex received an invitation to visit Earth. The message came through official diplomatic channels, but the personal note attached was in Benton's handwriting. "Come see what we're really capable of," it read. "I think you'll find it interesting." She accepted, of course. Curiosity was a weakness of her species. The journey to Sol system took 2 weeks aboard a Zephyran courier ship. As they approached Earth's orbital space, Sarex found herself studying the human homeworld with new appreciation. From space, it looked impossibly fragile. Thin atmosphere, mostly water, no obvious defensive installations. The sort of world that should have been conquered dozens of times over. But as her ship entered the inner system, the sensors began picking up readings that didn't match the visual data. The asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter showed signs of extensive mining operations, but the excavated materials weren't being transported to Earth or the outer colonies. They were simply disappearing. "Commander," her pilot reported, voice tight with concern. "I'm reading massive energy signatures throughout the system. It's like everything is connected to some kind of distributed network." "Show me." The sensor display revealed the truth. Every asteroid, every space station, every piece of orbital debris larger than a few centimeters was connected by streams of microscopic particles. Nanoscale drones, millions upon millions of them, forming a vast web throughout Sol system. The entire solar system had been weaponized. Any hostile fleet entering human space would find themselves surrounded by an army of invisible machines. Their ships would be disabled before they could fire a shot. Their crews would be helpless, utterly at the mercy of a species that had learned to wage war with tools too small to see. It was beautiful, terrifying, completely unstoppable. Sarex began to laugh, a sound that grew into something approaching hysteria. Her crew stared at her with concern, but she couldn't explain what she found so amusing. Humanity had invited the galaxy to underestimate them. They had played the role of harmless farmers while building the most sophisticated defense network in known space. And they had done it all while serving tea and discussing crop yields with visiting diplomats. As her ship approached Earth's orbital stations, Sarex composed a message to the Zephyran High Command. It would be brief, urgent, and classified at the highest levels. "Recommend immediate revision of human threat assessment," she would write. "Previous classification of level 3 inadequate. Suggest new designation, level unknown. Because that's what humanity truly was: unknown, unpredictable, capable of anything. The gentle predators had revealed themselves at last, and the galaxy would never be the same. Her ship docked with Earth Station 1 without incident. Benton was waiting for her in the arrival bay, dressed in simple civilian clothes and carrying a bouquet of flowers from his homeworld. "Welcome to Earth," he said, offering her the blooms with a smile that seemed entirely innocent. She accepted them, noting their sweet fragrance and delicate beauty. "They're lovely, just like everything else we grow here. Come on, I'll show you around. We have a lot to discuss." As they walked through the station's corridors, Sarix found herself marveling at the casual efficiency of everything around her. The humans moved with purpose, but without apparent haste. Their technology was elegant, unobtrusive, integrated seamlessly into daily life. It looked like paradise. But now she knew the truth. This wasn't just a homeworld or a space station. It was the command center of the most dangerous military force in the galaxy. And the farmers who had built it were preparing to show her exactly what they were capable of. The gentle predators were ready to begin the next phase of their very patient plan. Sarix smiled and took Benton's offered arm, eager to see what surprises humanity had waiting for her. After all, she was paying attention now, and that, as he had told her, was the most important thing of all.